Welcome to the Good News Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Darling, along with Carlo Navarro. And this is a really cool moment for me, specifically because I get the absolute honor and privilege to interview one of my closest friends, the man who has been my best friend for 26 years, the guy who recruited me into the distribution industry, into janitorial and packaging supply distribution. And, this is the guy, and you've heard me share it all the time, was that I got a phone call from this guy, and his name is Justin Clark. And he said, "Hey man, I really think you need to come sell toilet paper with me up in Knoxville, Tennessee." And I thought that was just the most crappiest job ever. But here, looking back almost 14 years later, it was the greatest decision I made in my life. Justin Clark, welcome to the Good News Podcast.
What's going on, man? It's cool to see you in this context. So pumped to hear what questions you have and help however I can.
Yeah, this is what's really cool about this is Justin is known doing stuff like this has been a passion of mine for a long time. And I've had a podcast before, Carlos had podcasts before, but yet now getting to do it in a space that you and I both, oddly enough, both being exercise science majors back in college, now find ourselves very passionate about sales and distribution and all of these things that you and I don't think ever thought we would be doing or selling or learning about as far as careers. But Justin, why don't you give everybody just a little bit of context to like your background, what you've done, what you're passionate about, and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I've been in distribution sales now. It's a little over 15 years. Started out as just a traditional intro to territory manager. So as some people say, carried a bag. So managed the territory and did all those pieces, moved into business development, and then quickly realized the idea of leadership or being in sales management was something I've been an athlete my whole life, and being in a leadership position, something I always enjoyed. So for the last 9 years or so, I've been in some form of distribution sales leadership and have moved through multiple positions from district sales manager to regional sales manager to director to VP of sales to now being a VP of sales with a publicly traded company, but all that time in the distribution world. So I certainly don't have all of the answers, but I have seen a lot of different things.
Yeah. And not only that, man, right? Like, but you've been somebody, as you said, you moved yourself up through the ranks. You started as a territory manager, and going out and opening new business and moved into all these roles. And, there's so many things that we could talk about. I mean, as your time as a VP of sales, you helped create a inside sales team out of absolutely nothing and wrote a book on it called How to Sell Toilet Paper Over the Phone, which is a great read. If you're in distribution and you're wanting to find a way to build a revenue center of inside salespeople that will proactively reach out to your customers, this is a great way to learn how to do that. So you've been in distribution, you've worked in this your entire life, in your professional career. But you mentioned something, and I want to go back to it. You didn't originally go to college or anything like that. Like Carlo went for business. I went for exercise science or marketing, I guess Carlo went for. You went to school like I did for exercise science, but yet found this unique skill because of your background as an athlete and someone who was a personal trainer and all of these things that allowed you to be pretty successful in distribution sales. What do you think those crossover attributes were that helped you be so successful?
I don't know if it's just distribution sales as much as it is when you're in the fitness world or working with athletes. That typically takes place early in the morning, late at night. It involves structure and it involves process. It involves showing up very regularly and not doing anything extravagant, but being consistent for a long period of time. So that transitioned into the sales world pretty significantly, in the sense that if you can get somebody that is personable, that doesn't mind hearing no, and can consistently follow a process, there is a high chance they'll be successful in sales, but specifically distribution sales.
Yeah. So good. Carlo and I were talking, because Carlo's an athlete too. I don't know if any of the listeners know this, but Carlo, what's one of your passions that you're chasing after in life?
Golf, man. I love golf. It was a later stage sport for me, but it's one of those sports that really a lot of people are passionate about, but that's kind of my jam at this point.
Yeah, and JC's a big golf guy as well. But I think it's interesting, right? When we look at sports, when we look at athletics, and people who have this internal drive, they don't have to be told to get up in the morning and go work out. They don't have to be told to put in the work to eat the right food so that they can perform. There's so many crossovers to what I think a lot of people are wanting to find in successful salespeople, right? And how they recruit.
Now, the big piece you hear in sales, go get the athletes, right? But what they're really saying is go get the passionate people that want something badly. It doesn't necessarily have to be a sport. It could be an equestrian. So you're big into horses. You do that super early in the morning and you're prepared. You could be in band, and you could be the guy, the marching band that carries the trumpet. It's not necessarily an athletic sport, but you show up on time, prepared, with a good attitude. And it's that passion that translates over into sales. It's easy to say it's athletics, but shout out to all those people that don't play sports, but also are crushing it in whatever they're doing.
Look at JC setting the record straight. Let's go. All right. So JC, so you started in distribution. What, you started in janitorial supplies and packaging supplies and equipment and all that stuff. And then now you're working with this publicly traded company in distribution. What type of distribution are you working in now?
We're in laundry equipment, service, boilers, things laundry related. So you think washer and dryer, right? But really big, lots of loads, and moving that type of product into the verticals, which will be hospitality, laundromats, industrial. There's a bunch of different segments, but that's the primary pieces we're moving.
And what, one of the things Carlo and I have really been looking into, and the whole point of this podcast is how we help bridge that gap between sales and marketing, so that companies can learn how to collaborate better in these areas, to go out and share the good news of how they serve, using their products, services, or solutions to the industry or the people or the customers that they love to work with. And distribution, I think, is a really interesting beast there, because sometimes, there's not always these defined sales and marketing departments. Sometimes you have people doing both. And, I know everybody's goal is working to help grow sales. What have you found has been some of the biggest challenges in distribution? Now, because obviously you have experience in multiple different industries in distribution. What are you finding are some of the biggest challenges that distributors face when it comes to new customer acquisition and finding the prospects that they want to serve?
Yeah, so I'm going to take this to two separate areas. First, if we go back 12 to 15 years ago, when the internet became more prevalent for searching for our end user. So 12 to 15 years ago, people started Googling information. And in distribution, before that time, the salesperson was the expert that would share that information. So when the internet became more prevalent, and now obviously more so than ever, our customers can get a lot of the information the salesperson used to have it for themselves. So that was a huge change, where that salesperson who used to stop by with the new product or the new information is not nearly as valuable, because the customer might have saw a YouTube video, they might have listened to a podcast. So first off, it's more difficult for that salesperson in distribution to be valuable if they're just giving basic spec information. Secondly, though, was what happened with COVID. Well, when COVID happened, costs went up across the board and margins went down. So you think our end user making whatever product that we're selling, they're in manufacturing, whatever they're doing, their margins are getting tighter. So they started looking at the people in their organization. So they might have had 3 or 4 or 5 purchasing people or in operations that were buying our products in 2020. You look at those companies now and they might have 2. Maybe they have 1. So now these people can get information at their fingertips, and it's harder than ever to get in touch with them, not because anything's changed on the salesperson's behalf, but when this person used to receive 7 prospecting calls a week, they're now receiving 30 prospecting calls a week. So it's harder than ever to get them to have interest. And so that salesperson is equally as good. Nothing has changed. They're just as valuable. They just can't have a harder time having that initial conversation.
The internet changed things because accessibility to information is much easier. And so when the only value that salespeople are basing their outreach or their conversations on is the information around their products or services, it's kind of limiting impact because people can do their own research. They can find out a lot about that stuff. And then obviously getting a hold of people because they're wearing a lot more hats, it makes prospecting a little bit more difficult to be able to get a hold of people or have the right conversations. Mm-hmm. But what are you seeing? Like, how do you see a need in a change of conversation and a change in making sure that salespeople are having conversations with the right people? Are you seeing a shift to where companies and distributors are doing more training around, hey, let's make sure we're not just selling product and what we sell, but focusing on who we serve? Or do you still think that there's this underlying belief that the product is the value and that the more product information people have, the more valuable they're going to be as salespeople?
Yeah, I think that's the big challenge in distribution, because there are still a lot of people that like to talk about their product. They like to talk about why it's better, why it's different. And here's the thing, they're not wrong. It might be better and it might be different. It just doesn't differentiate you compared to other people. So what we have to think about in distribution that's tough is more often than not, when whatever product you would sell, it's packaging, it's food service, it's equipment, we have so many different customer types we can sell to. So I met with a company once and I said, who's your primary customer? And they said, well, we can sell it to everybody. And that really means you have no customer if you can sell to every customer. And so one of the challenges when you're in sales and you get into distribution is when you can sell to everyone with this huge breadth of products, it's exhausting and it's difficult and it's hard to get very good at anything. So from a sales leadership position, what we want to be able to do is look at those different customer types, determine first off, who is it that we have the biggest value in? Do they see us as more than just a price? Secondly, we want to look at our profit margin. Where do we make money? Do we actually not make much in this customer because of the operating costs or what's involved? And if you can figure out this customer sees big value in us, we make a good profit as well, then at that point, the leadership team needs to find all of those ideal customers, build all of their marketing, all of their information. So when they hire that new salesperson to the industry, so they've been with us 3 months, you're not going to have them go out and call on everyone and sell everything. You are going to teach them and train them in that specific area. So when they go out and they win business, it's beneficial to the business, it's beneficial for themselves, and then they stay in distribution for a long time.
Yep. So you made a mention of marketing, and I know, Carlo is our resident marketing person here, right, on the podcast. What has your relationship and your collaboration been like with marketing and distribution in the past? And if you, knowing what you just said, that the best thing that a company can do is to identify the people that they serve I always like to say, who are, what are all the products, services, or solutions that we're selling to that one particular customer that makes them that great customer? We have all these relationships where they love doing business with us and we love doing business with them. How have you worked with marketing to identify some of those things and develop marketing straight to those particular types of companies? Or do you see, or if you had your magic wand, how would you want to see interactions between sales leaders and marketing?
So I'm going to answer this to what happens often. And at my previous company, always happened. And if you have salespeople leading marketing, it's going to be very bad. It's not going to look good. It's not going to look good. It's not going to be the ideal customer. And it's going to be a lot of work for them to do so. So in my previous organization, marketing initially it ran through the sales team where they would decide who they wanted to go after. They would make the flyer, and it never really worked out very well. Where to get back to your question, as the sales leader, I want to be able to figure out what market do we want to go after and then get with marketing and have them begin researching. Let them start looking at keywords. Let them start evaluating what's most important to that customer, because I'm not a marketing expert. They are. But if I can say, this is where we want to go, this is why we think we want to get there, and allow them to come back to us with suggestions, it is so much better and lands in a different way for that customer than if a salesperson created it.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. I mean, and I wish more sales leaders had that awareness that needs to happen. And I think it starts with understanding that that's not your expertise, and you want to be able to leverage people that do have that. But also, and JD and I has always talked about this too, is that marketers should allow salespeople to do what they do best, and not force marketing activities that they don't want to do. And if they don't want to do it, it's never really going to get done.
So if anyone's listening here and you want to grow sales, here's the easiest way in distribution to grow sales. Figure out ways for your salespeople to have more selling conversations with your best customers. If you have more selling conversations with your best customers and your sales team is at least decent, sales will go up significantly. Have them not spending the time getting the customer. We need to work with marketing so marketing can help them put their hand up. Because when a salesperson has a customer come and put their hand up, it is a totally different conversation than when you're prospecting on the front end. When you're prospecting on the front end, it might be 50 customers you're calling, emailing, LinkedIn messaging, texting, smoke signaling, whatever it would be to get in front of 2 of them. Imagine if you just woke up and you had 2 ready, and then you can multiply that times 10. And then in the week, you spoke to 20 customers instead of 2 customers. It's an absolute game changer for revenue growth. And equally as importantly, is holding on to talent. When you can help new salespeople in distribution find success by pointing them where to go and having customers have their hand up, at that point, you'll maintain that talent. And there's not much more costly for an organization for hiring a salesperson and then churning them out every 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. There's just nothing better, right, than to talk to someone who has the same interests as you, and you have a solution that they have needs for. And that's where I think sales is fun. Like when you get to talk to the right people, but then if you're not talking to the right people in the right room, then it's just like, it's a slug.
Yeah. It can be, when you're having a lot of conversations with the wrong people and you're getting a lot of no's, sales can be incredibly difficult. It can be stressful. It can, for a lot of people, it creates anxiety and all of those things. JC, you mentioned the helping salespeople get more successful quicker.
Mm-hmm.
You and I for a long time worked at the same organization in sales, and we weren't just commission-based salespeople, right? We made a salary and then we made a bonus, and there used to be a lot of conversations that I've seen around. You hire somebody and they're like, oh, this person's going to be a superstar. 18 to 20 months later, when that salesperson, that younger salesperson that you thought had all this potential and talent, they go, hey, I'm taking a job somewhere else. And it's because they're not being successful. They're not making as much money as they wanted to make or whatever. And they leave. Like, do you think I want to ask it? How do I want to ask this? It's almost like it's the Taylor Swift syndrome where organizations are then end up blaming the talent. Oh, they were never that good. Oh, they were kind of a risky hire and all this stuff, instead of retrospectively looking and saying, did we as leaders do everything we could do to put this person in the most successful spot that they could be in? Why do you think there's such that big gap in a lot of distributors in that talent development and helping them be successful by putting them in front of the right customers versus what we know as the industry average, which is like you and I started, here's a sales territory, here's a sales plan, you have 0 customers, go get them, Tiger, and this sink or swim mentality.
Businesses are so focused in the business that they don't focus on the business.
Ooh, say that again for the people in the back.
They're so focused in the business that they don't focus on the business. Wow. Most of these leaders in distribution aren't bad people. If you ask them if they had a better onboarding in building this out, they would tell you they want it, they love it, they get it. I think logically they understand. But when you're chasing down a new HR person, or the truck broke down, or this other piece that's running the business, which pays the bills, you end up not thinking about the long-term effects. And this is where companies work with consultants, because a consultant can come in and help you work on your business while you're stuck in the business. So if you can go to that leader that's not currently onboarding, it's probably because they think it's overwhelming. You can help them understand, though, if you set expectations, so you hire the salesperson and you say, 12 months from now, I'd like you to be able to do these 10 things. All right. And over the next 3 months, we're going to focus on these 3 things. And here's going to be your mentor, coach, guide for these 3 things. And at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, I'd like you to talk to me about those 3 things to get good at. And you do that throughout the year. At the end of the year, there's 12 things that you as the leader find important. And all you had to do was meet with them 4 times in the year. Now, is that the most perfect onboarding? Of course not. But it's not as difficult, because we just have to set those expectations. Here's where we want you to go. Here's the support that's going to help you get there. And just so you know, at the end of this quarter, we're going to ask you about it. So there's a level of accountability. Just that basic of onboarding, and you will totally change the, hey, here's your book, go out there and get him, Tiger, as you said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to what you were talking about earlier, Justin, about you being in the fitness industry, is having that process and discipline to actually do the framework and execute on it. I think we all love looking at frameworks, but we don't really want to execute on what we know could push it forward. But it's hard to execute, you know. But that really resonates with me about having a discipline to do the work.
Ideas are easy. Execution is really, really hard.
And ideas are free.
Yeah. Ideas are free, and great news, in a week, you'll have a different idea that you'll feel really excited about also. Which
I know nothing about that.
The truth is, though, all of those ideas are valuable. They are good ideas. But that structure and process doesn't have to be everything written down. It's just minimal amounts of structure and accountability that you set with yourself or with that person.
Yeah. You know, and I've seen articles like these. You've seen articles like these before. There was an article in Harvard Business Review that written by Matthew Dixon and Brent Adamson. And it says that selling is not about relationships. And it talks to, you know, and there's other articles out there that talk about how potentially relationship selling is dead, or you don't need salespeople to build relationships to sell. And I'm going to ask you this on a little different kind of note. The three of us on this call are all Christ followers. We're all believers. We believe in relationship building and loving and caring about other people. When you hear things or see articles or see people post about like building relationships in sales is dead and it's not needed and all of this stuff, but when you think of the context of like how we believe we're supposed to walk through life building these relationships, loving and caring about people, do you still see a value in the relationships that salespeople are building with the right customers that they can serve? Or do you think the relationship is not as important and maybe over focused on than other areas of like a salesperson's skill set or ability?
The easy answer is to say, yes, relationships are so valuable, build relationships, and that's what will keep your business growing. And I don't disagree with that concept. But the fact that you brought relationship with Christ in and comparing it to relationships with customers, I think we're called to build relationships with people and care and love them, whether we want them as a customer or not.
Wow.
But I also think that just because I have a great relationship with someone, if my competitor can come in and give them a better value, fix a problem that they have, and reduce any risk that they might see with me, our relationship only goes so far. I love relationship selling because it gets you to the party. When you have the relationship, when something goes wrong, when your company screws something up, that relationship is critical. That way you get to stay at the party. However, on the front end, when someone's making a decision, Jonathan, I love you, man. You know, you're my best friend. But if your competitor came to me offering me something that you couldn't offer, that is a different value, I would end up purchasing it. And not because of the lack of relationship I have with you. So relationship building is huge. I love building relationships. But if all you're basing it on, you completely open yourself up for someone to be able to do the job better than you're doing.
Yeah, that's so good. And, you know, really kind of the last question I want to ask specifically is around the idea of, you know, we coming from the backgrounds that we come from, distribution typically on the business side of things is a little bit more hesitant to technology. They love new technology in their products and the things that they're selling and all this stuff. But when it comes to, you know, I remember when you and I were a part of a first ever CRM implementation into the organization we were working for, and you and I were pumped. We were like, we can keep all of this information and we can set tasks and to-dos and reminders. And then there were some people that are like, nope, hate it, micromanagement, right? How do you see technology as we're moving into sales and maybe specifically to distribution? How do you see technology like automation and artificial intelligence and those types of things playing a part in how, and do you see those as tools that are valuable to distribution and sellers to do their job more effectively? Or do you still see that there's going to be this real late adoptive curve that we typically see in distribution with adopting this new type of sales enablement type tools?
Well, I'll answer your question by saying I think it's unbelievably valuable. I don't necessarily think it's happening in distribution as much as it can. However, for those that want to overtake and gain market share, if you can figure out a way to use AI to build out cadences, and cadences are, for those listening, a way you're going to communicate to someone on a regular basis. There's nothing more important in the world right now than attention. It's more important than money. We have to stay in the front of someone's mind. So as a seller or a traditional seller, you can only be one place at a time. So what these tools allow you to do is to replicate yourself. They replicate yourself through automated emails, through tasks, by finding out ways so that you can, once again, the goal being, have as many conversations as you can with a customer that has their hand up. And so if you don't use those tools, You might have 10 conversations in the week. Imagine the person that has 20. At some point, they're going to get good and they're going to begin to take market share, which is what the goal is. So can business go on without AI? Of course it can. Those people that choose, though, to use it can be a game changer. And I absolutely encourage distribution, all industries, but specifically distribution, to follow the SaaS industry, software as a service. These guys are doing some really cool things. And we think that just because we have a product that's toilet paper or stretch film or a laundry or a washing machine, that it doesn't fit for us, but it does.
Yeah. How do you see, so with that, you're someone who has found a lot of value, and you and I kind of went on this journey together for a while, and still are really, of learning how to use LinkedIn as a tool to build familiarity with people that we may potentially want to do business with. How have you seen LinkedIn change your ability to serve the distribution industry and the customers that you serve in it?
Well, I meet people every week that say something along the lines of, "Hey, I've been following you for years on LinkedIn." And all that means is there's a feeling they have about me. And that feeling opens the door for a conversation and a relationship. You know, you mentioned as Christ followers, we're built for building relationships. And sometimes building relationships is hard. So LinkedIn is a tool that allows you to break that first wall down. So for those that are listening that are using LinkedIn, if you want to have little engagement and not get very great fruit for your labor, post about yourself, about your company or your products. Because no one cares about your company or products, but they do care about you. So if you can figure out a way to let people in and see who you are when you do communicate them, whether you're hiring someone, whether you're trying to get a customer, or whether you're looking for your next position, they're going to feel like they already know you. And that feeling is invaluable, and you can't replace it without taking the time to create it.
Love that.
That's so good. Well, man, I think the three of us could probably have a conversation around topics like these for a long time. I know, JC, you and I, these are things that you and I have talked about for so long, because we became so, I'm reminded of a Kobe Bryant quote where he talks about, like, I'm not really concerned with the outcome. I'm not concerned with wins or losses, although he was an incredibly competitive person. He said he was so passionate about basketball and so passionate about wanting to perfect something that he loved so much. He was willing to work. He loved the process of working every single day to perfect something he never could, knowing he never could, but he just loved working on and doing everything he could to perfect it, even though he knew it was an arbitrary, goal. You and I think learned a long time ago, we really started loving sales. We started loving prospecting and cold calling and finding those ideal customers and figuring out how to create conversations and build familiarity and continue to learn about it. And so, being able to have you on here and share, maybe sounding a little bit more formally than what you and I would typically sound in a conversation about these things. Your expertise is so valuable. And I think what's interesting too is something you learned on LinkedIn and I'm learning and Carlo's learning with using LinkedIn is what we thought might be elementary and something that's not, game changing for people, because it's just been things that we've always done, really could be revolutionary for someone else. And so I really appreciate you taking the time, man, to come on here, be with Carlo and I, talk about sales and distribution and marketing and the things that we're passionate about, and getting to share, man, your expertise with the world.
Well, fellas, honored to be here. Great to talk to you in this more formal setting. I'm here for you guys. I'm here for distribution, and I love what y'all are doing.
Appreciate it, man. Where can people follow you? Where can people connect with you and continue to learn how to improve from a sales and leadership perspective?
My website is justinleadership.com, just like it sounds. Justin Leadership, which is kind of a pun, like just in leadership, which started as an initial joke 4 years ago on LinkedIn. I created a hashtag, Justin Leadership, and that grew into a little bit of a business. But follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I spend. It's the only social media I spend any time on, because if I get stuck scrolling for hours, at least I learned something.
Love it.
Love it. Love it. Well, man, thanks again. I appreciate it. And, look, again, this podcast, the Good News Podcast, it's all about helping bridge the gap between sales and marketing so that we can help companies learn how to share the good news to the people they serve about how they serve them. And so thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to follow Justin, go check him out. He's an incredible follow. You'll learn all types of stuff about him and really be able to start changing, I believe, the perspective you might have on the purpose you put into your work from a sales and leadership perspective. So appreciate it. And until next time, we'll see you soon.